Hi, Leanne Donoghue-Tamplin here, and today I'm interviewing Cassandra Bach. Cassandra's going to talk to us about the biggest obstacle she's had to overcome in her life, which was her journey to get pregnant. She went through a range of different therapies over a 2-year period to accomplish that goal, and it was a really challenging time for her. You'll notice throughout the interview that you may hear some snoring in the background. Cassandra's beautiful dog Brandy had surgery during the day and was sleeping beside her on the couch while she was talking to me. So from time to time you may hear that in the background. And also, just to let you know that Cassandra now has a 4-year-old little girl named Sandy, and so her pregnancy process ended with a very positive outcome. Right, enjoy the interview, and I'll come back and talk to you again soon.
Can you tell me a little bit about what it is that we're going to talk about today? What was this challenge that you had to work through?
Well, when I was 42, I was in a failing relationship and realized that if I didn't hurry up, that I might not have a child. And I was very committed to having a child in my life.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and so what was going on for you at that time? It sounds like, you were feeling kind of lost or trapped or stuck. What was happening?
Well, the relationship was clearly not going to go the direction I wanted it to.
Yeah.
And I did the math. I counted backwards. So I sort of went, okay, if I end this relationship now, it'll take me at least 6 months to get, over it. Then if I meet somebody within a year, I'm like 43 and a half by then. And then I've just started dating them. Yeah. And how on earth do I instantly start trying to have a child? So we're pushing it to like over 44 before I even started trying. Yeah. And I just thought, that's really risking it. Yeah. So I started looking for other options, and for me, it was to have a child on my own.
Why was it so important for you to have a child? Was it just some decision you'd made?
Yeah, I always expected to have kids. When I was young, I expected to have a lot of kids, and I even wanted to have kids when I was a kid. Right. So like I can remember telling my mom when I was about 16 that I could start having the babies and she could raise them while I finished high school,
Yeah, right. Wow.
I wasn't on board with that idea. But I was very determined, and it was sort of the only thing that I knew for certain that I wanted to do. Like when I was really young, I knew I had different career ideas. And most of them had to do with medicine, and whether it was veterinary or a traditional medicine, or then it morphed to naturopathic medicine. So I sort of had an idea about that, but even that could be fluid and was sort of evolving and whatnot. Whereas family, I was going to have a family. My parents had me very young. Right. So I expected to start my family, as soon as I became a grown-up. Yeah. So I was surprised when it didn't happen. Yeah. And then it kept not happening and not happening.
Yeah. And then you were running out of time, as you said.
Oh, well. Yeah, I sort of thought my options are go it on my own or potentially not at all. Yeah. And that just wasn't an option.
Right. So you just knew you couldn't go it on your own. You just knew There was no way I could do that.
Go it on my own?
I mean, no, sorry, you could go without. Not have it.
Right. Yeah, no, that was not an acceptable choice for me. It seems like that. I think I struggled with my life not making sense, because I didn't have that, which, I don't know how else to describe it, but I feel like I lacked purpose because I didn't have a child. So I could abuse my body more because what did I need it for? Like nobody was around to, to need me. I always had dogs. Sometimes I had cats too, to try and keep that maternal instinct in check. But yeah, I really just wasn't complete, if you will.
Yeah. And so you ended up making a decision, I have to make this happen somehow.
Yeah.
Right? And you said you were 42-ish already when that...
I was 42 when I decided.
Yeah. And so what then you ended up getting pregnant and having a child, right?
Yes.
So how long a time period was it between those two things, between making that decision and finally getting a solution, an answer, an end point?
From decision to conception was, sorry, I've never thought of it in these terms. From decision to conception was about 2 years.
So the reason I asked that is that's probably the time frame I'm looking at, that 2-year period when you were, finalizing that decision or, reassuring yourself of that decision, and then all the things you went through to try and get to the point where, I got there.
Yes.
So in that 2-year time frame, what were you going through? What were you doing during that 2 years?
I had the attitude of, I'm going to throw everything at the wall and surely some of it will stick.
Right. Yeah.
So I actually naively thought, well, I've never been pregnant, but I've never had a problem, so surely it'll just happen. And I remember the first artificial insemination thinking, I'm pregnant. Like, how fantastic is this?
Yeah.
And then not being.
Right.
And that was a surprise and a bit of a reality check. But yes, so I was doing every alternative therapy I could think of.
Right.
So Mayan abdominal massage and acupuncture, and I changed my diet. I showed up at the naturopath before I could even get an appointment to see a doctor.
Yep.
And I said, I basically said, okay, this is what I'm doing. How do I clean up my body? Because I've been abusing it for years.
Yeah.
And so I had to cut out gluten and dairy, and like the list goes on and on and on and on of all the physical things that I did.
And so would you say that you moved to that because your initial thought was, well, this will be easy, I'll just go about and do whatever, the artificial insemination, and they'll be right. But when you realized that wasn't happening, there was, oh, okay, so what do I need to do now to make this happen? And it was, then you tried everything. Is that how that went?
So I just sort of downloaded a bit of a list. So I'll break it down a little bit. That'll be clear. So was August, I made the decision, started looking at sperm donors and stuff, but that was really weird. That was the hardest part for me, was choosing one. Went to my naturopath right away and started cleaning up. So started drinking less and, cutting out some of the things I shouldn't be having, and getting better sleep, and I didn't expect to have to cut out gluten and dairy. That was immediate. And then when I started not getting pregnant, I started adding everything else in.
Yes.
So then the acupuncture came in. So basically I started doing a ton of research and doing anything I could get my hands on that was in the research. And that went along for quite a while, and I kept doing artificial insemination. And then it was actually my massage therapist who does Mayan abdominal massage, which is, I can't remember what the stats are on that, but it's been proven to help people get pregnant.
Yeah.
I think to be honest, the biggest thing that it does is increase blood flow to the uterus.
Right. Yeah.
Especially when you're in your 40s.
Yeah.
I haven't used that thing yet. So what if she suggested that I see a shaman.
Right.
And I went to my naturopath and said this crazy idea. And she said, what if somebody else doesn't want you to get pregnant? And I was like, what? That's possible? Like somebody else could have power over me? And I wasn't okay with that. Yeah. So that's when I started going to see a shaman. So it sort of went from physical journey but I had so much determination that it then became a physical and emotional journey, and then it became spiritual. And I wasn't expecting that at all.
Now, I'm going to ask you, because you've mentioned a number of the physical things you were going through in that time, but you didn't say what emotional things you were going through. So what was happening for you emotionally while you were going through that period?
Well, I would say working with the shaman actually helped me a lot with the emotional stuff. I was really committed, but I would say I probably lacked focus. So I was committed, and the emotional part, it was funny. I think I didn't let my, you can hear a little bit of snoring.
Yeah, and that's okay. Sorry. That's your dog.
Okay, so every cycle, so I did probably 10 or 12 artificial inseminations. So every month you'd find out that you aren't pregnant.
Yes.
So you have this like complete letdown because you're kind of building up. It's like, oh, is it happening? Is it happening? Maybe. And then no. And so I kind of created a compartment for that. And it was that I was allowed my one night of pity party. So I drank too much wine. I, did anything that I wanted to do in that one night. Too much wine. It was a little bit too much wine. It wasn't, going crazy, but it was probably a lot too much wine for other people who don't drink a lot. But anyways, but yeah, I would drink.
Relative.
Yes, exactly. So I would drink some wine. I would feel sorry for myself. I'd, watch sad movies, whatever I needed to do, cry, mope, call people and complain about woe's me, whatever. And then the next morning, that box was closed. Yeah. And I picked myself back up. I got back on the bandwagon of I am having a baby.
Yeah.
And then when I got to working with the shaman, that she helped me develop a process that helped me get incredibly clear and focused and just a really clear intention. Mm-hmm. So I every day, and I used to kind of hide it because I thought if anyone sees me doing these things, they're going to think I'm nuts. Because I almost had a shrine, and I described it as that. Now I realize it was probably spiritual people would probably call it an altar. Right. Where I had a onesie with two little dogs on the front that say "I love mommy." I had two dogs at the time. Yeah. And I would pull that out, and I had a bunch of magazine pictures that I would pull out that were all of like mummies and babies and happy pictures of mummies and babies, and I would have a candle burning, and I think there was one other little thing that was like a baby toy or something, and that would be in front of me on my coffee table, and I would sit and pretty much every day. And I had not been one to meditate before or pray. And I would sit every day and I would just envision what that was going to look like and pray and say, this is what I want, basically, and create that picture. And it became really vivid, and it became eventually I got to doing it for like 40-45 minutes.
Wow.
So, and without a blink of an eye, like it would the time would fly by because I would just get into this is what I want for my life.
Yeah.
So it became really focused, and that was with the help of the shaman. So
yeah.
And then of course there were a whole bunch of shamanic things too.
Yeah.
But that was really helpful.
So can you tell me, was there a point along that journey where you went, this is impossible? or it's never going to happen?
There was one point, and it was at the very end. So all those artificial inseminations, you never know if egg and sperm even met.
Right.
It's like, you just don't know. Maybe they, whatever, they're just floating around. And, but once I did IVF, so in vitro fertilization, where they had mini me's, they had 2 embryos.
Yeah.
And they transferred those into my uterus. And technically I was pregnant.
Yes.
So I knew those little guys had been created.
Yes.
And I knew they were in there. And now there was somebody to actually die.
Yeah, right.
So when that happened, because now I know they were there, not once before did I ever get pregnant. I knew they were in there. And they didn't make it even to the pregnancy test. But they were viable. They were alive when they were transferred. So somebody actually, a mini me died. And that was so much harder. It was incredible. Like there was no comparison.
Yeah.
It was really remarkable. So I, going through grieving that was kind of like, really, like in vitro fertilization can't even do it. I had not been given any reasons why I wasn't getting pregnant other than I was old. Mm-hmm. So the chances of me getting pregnant were 6 to 7%.
Yeah.
Really low.
Yeah.
And so after that cycle, I was kind of like, so I have one more vial of sperm. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to do one more IVF because I'm not throwing a lot of money at 6 or 7% chance.
Yes.
And I thought, okay, well, to be honest, I might not have gone forward had it not been for the fact that the second round was booked at the first round.
Right. It might have been the end. Might have been the end of the journey. Right.
Yeah. So my thoughts were like, I almost was ahead of myself thinking that it wasn't going to work.
Yeah.
And then my thoughts were, am I going to go the route of donor eggs too? Like, how far am I going to take this? And I realized that I was going to go that far. So I was trying to figure out how I would refinance my house. I haven't done the final round yet.
Yeah.
But I was like trying to figure out where was I going to get, $32,000 at that point.
Yep.
So, so that was kind of like, I just started going through the motions for that last round because I sort of thought that it wasn't going to work. I was just done.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and the way you kept going was really, it wasn't by plan. It was almost by, I've actually got the appointment booked. I'll go one more time. So I guess I would say that was almost luck, or, things coming together in the right way to make that happen. Because it sounds like that's when you actually fell pregnant. Is that right?
Well, I think it was that through that process, and possibly through the pain that I was feeling then,
emotional pain.
Yeah. I came to and actually the first round of IVF was physically painful as well. So I wasn't really looking. They actually had a shortage of pain medication in Canada, so they didn't give me enough.
Wow.
So it was shockingly painful. And I think it ended up actually coming down to the emotional. Like, I think I actually was more into the pain, the emotional pain. And that's where I had the shift in my beliefs.
Right.
And the energy shift, really. Because all of a sudden, one day, that man was still in and out of my life, which was so ridiculous. At this point, he was with another woman, but he still was coming and going. And what I didn't know then was that he was actually trying to conceive with her. So I was wrestling with that. And all of a sudden one day, oh, sorry, I disturbed him with my snap. All of a sudden one day I realized, oh, I have to change the energy here. I can't have, I realized I was still attached to the two-parent family, even though I was going through the motions on my own. And he was that person that I was holding on to.
Yeah.
And as soon I had him over and I said, I have to have no contact with you. And he was like, for how long? I'm like, if you hear from me, that's how long. Like, otherwise, I don't want to hear from you.
Yeah.
And he wasn't happy about it at all. And I said, I need to change this because I need to be fully committed to having a baby by myself. And by being attached to you, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
And I was pregnant 2 weeks later.
That's astounding, isn't it? Yeah.
Like the shift was immediate. And it was shocking. Like I was just, it's amazing what we don't know what we don't know. And it's amazing with our beliefs, what we don't realize is influencing us.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So as soon as I shifted that, we're good to go.
All right, I'm just going to pause the interview there. I wanted to review some of those things that Cassandra's been talking about. She said that she used lots of natural remedies to cope with the stress and to get her body ready for pregnancy. So she used diet, exercise, meditation, but also sought input from naturopaths and other alternative healers so that she could build both her knowledge base about what to do and also apply a lot of those skills and strategies that she was learning from them. She also said that the spiritual aspect was a really important part of her journey, and there was a big focus on the meaning and purpose of her life and what this was for her. She created a shrine, which she was a little self-conscious about using that term, but it was a shrine, and she used that really as a visualization tool. So she had a lot of images and things within that made the vividness of the plan or the goal very clear for her. And that, again, was a really big part of how she kept moving towards the goals she wanted. She said she was very committed throughout the process, but that she felt she lacked focus and that there were some old beliefs that were holding her back. So she had to dig deep and find out what they were and then address some of those beliefs. She also said along the way that there were lots of ups and downs. It was certainly not a smooth process. Lots of disappointments and regular ones, like every month another disappointment. But she said she would compartmentalize those, so kind of put them into a bit of a box in her head. She gave herself one night to feel it and experience the feelings and really feel down and disappointed. And then she called it a pity party. And then she'd get herself back up and get back on with it the following day. So there was a real sense of there being an end to that feeling, the disappointment feeling, and then a renewed focus on where I'm headed to and the positivity and the imagery and moving forward towards that goal. All right, hope that helps you apply some of those things in your own life. And part 2 of this interview will be on another podcast. So look out for that, and I'll talk to you again soon.